When I tell you that this was the Manson family, like you read Helter Skelter, that is exactly what I experienced. And these kids still think that, oh my gosh, Cheryl and Mark love you. I'm like, well, of course you think that. They cut you off from your family and they brainwash you into thinking your family didn't want you.
These are the times we will all remember. Were you there? What did you do? So what do you say? We need to clean this place up?
Thy kingdom come.
Think celestial, making the celestial kingdom your eternal goal.
Listen to me now. Listen to me now.
And he is not permitted to evaluate
innuendo, half-truths, and lies.
Go to some weak sauce liberal Democrat baby butchering church, but do not come back to this one ever again until you repent.
Doubt is a tool of the devil designed to weaken us.
Repent! Repent! Repent!
You are listening to the new Heretics. Shame on you.
Excited to have Logan on today. We just happened to meet in an Uber ride the other day, and the podcast came up, and I mentioned something about it being about cult deconstruction, and like a light went off and Logan like lit up, and she was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Like, this is the year I decided that I was going to tell my story finally. She was raised in a cult, and so we're gonna dive in today. So thank you so much for being on, Logan, and for your bravery for finally sharing this story and being willing to do that in such a public way.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we can start at the beginning. What cult were you in?
So my place was called Who Am I Discovery. And they also used the term Whitmore Academy because it was under the premise of it being a behavior modification boarding school. But in reality, that was not what was happening. And so we went by Who Am I Discovery, or we called ourselves the Whitmore family because we lived in an old mansion that was called the Whitmore Mansion in Nephi, Utah.
So what age are we talking here?
I was 14 when I got sent there against my will. And I got out when I was 15, but they tried to convince me to stay longer.
Okay, so this was like a thing where you're a quote unquote troubled teen or something. You were having some issues at home or something, and somebody sent you to this school to like fix your attitude or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that how it was?
So the long story short is, I just grew up in a very dysfunctional home. My parents were addicts, and they were functional addicts, but they were addicts nonetheless. So with all the abuse happening at home, I kind of just lost my mind. And I spent most of 8th grade in the psych hospital, but it's funny. I never touched drugs, never touched alcohol. I went to a private school. I would have these emotional outbursts and was suicidal and self-mutilating. But again, no drugs, no alcohol, no sex, went to school. And it's so interesting because at the time they were like, oh, she's bipolar. And now I'm like, no, I was just in an abusive home. Anyone's going to lose their mind. So despite my parents' best intentions, addiction is complicated, and I don't fault them for what they chose to do. But in their mind, they thought, well, she's mentally unstable. We need to send her away to get help. And so my mom found a program in Utah, and I'm from Texas. So she loved that this place had horses. And I use air quotations because it was one of the selling points. Like, oh, your kid will ride horses. And so she's like, this is just what Logan needs. She just needs to go in the middle of nowhere, Utah, with this nice Mormon family. And then she'll stop, self-mutilating, and she's ride horses and everything will be hunky-dory. And she had no idea what she was dropping me off into. I don't think any of the parents knew the horrors that was happening behind the four walls of that Victorian mansion.
This is so interesting to me because I was also diagnosed with bipolar as a late teenager. And in hindsight, I've been wondering for some time now if that wasn't largely a fact of the reason was that I was in a cult that I was beating my head against the wall with.
Yeah.
And it does a lot of things to your mental health. And I don't know that this has been really fully studied. I don't know that we have like great research on the psychology of being in a cult and what that does to your mental health. And if it could cause different kinds of symptoms like things like bipolar, because I was on a bipolar diagnosis for like a decade and on meds for it and ended up not having bipolar in the end.
Yeah. Shocking. It's funny.
Yeah.
Years later, I ended up going to rehab because, lo and behold, I developed a drug addiction after all this trauma, right? Because I had to cope with it.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I can't believe you can't believe you survived all that and you started doing drugs to cope. And when I was in rehab, I was 21, and the doctor looked at me and she goes, "You're not bipolar, you have complex PTSD." And it was like, and since then I've not been medicated. Done a lot of therapy. And it's like, oh, wow, I actually am pretty mentally stable. I just had trauma. So it's very interesting how we almost gaslight people into saying, oh, you have some kind of mental disorder, when in reality, it's your environment. And, these cults, they do a number on you, right? So you can't gaslight somebody who's gone through something like that and say, it's something wrong with you. No, I went through absolute hell and back. Of course, I'm neurologically not well.
Yeah, and just we have listeners who may have just left a cult or who may be in the process of waking up right now, who are just questioning. What is complex PTSD? Have you had that explained to you in a way that's pretty easy to understand?
Yeah, so the way PTSD works, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's usually stemming from one event, like a car accident or a natural disaster or an assault. But when it's complex, it's layers, right? So it could be multiple events stacked on each other, or it could be chronic, meaning it was ongoing. And so because I had already experienced abuse growing up, and that's what was the premise of me going to this place, the abuse I had was compounded with more abuse. So it was almost like I was being abused by the cult for acting out for the abuse I was having at home. So by the time I was 21, my brain was just like short circuiting. I was just a fried egg. But it was so affirming to hear from a medical professional, like, no, you're not mentally ill. You're not crazy. You're not bipolar. You just have compounded trauma, one layer after another. So your response is natural considering everything you've had happen to you in your life.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just a quick anecdote. I saw that some complex PTSD can manifest itself as it's kind of hard to diagnose in some cases because it can manifest itself as different what do you call them? Mental disorders. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's like, oh, you have ADHD. No, you actually have complex PTSD, or you have bipolar disorder. Actually, it manifests itself as something akin to bipolar disorder, but it's actually just complex trauma.
Totally. And it's so funny because now at 36, like, this is my normal cadence. I'm sober. I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper. Like, I'm pretty regulated, but it's because I've managed my trauma. But if you would talk to me when I was 15, 16, 17, you would have been like, this girl is a nutcase, right? So it's again, I really go back to this idea of gaslighting victims into like, oh, well, there's something wrong with you, when instead victims really need to be heard. Or I shouldn't say victims, survivors deserve to have their story told and affirmed, and then given the agency to decide, how do I want to move forward? And then once someone's actually been able to have their story heard, then diagnose them. But they really need to have the opportunity to really unpack what's happening, especially if you've never been able to sit, share, this is what's been going on.
Yeah, because in hindsight, it's pretty wild to think about getting a mental health diagnosis when a practitioner has no idea that you're in an abusive cult, for example. I mean, because you might go to a psychiatrist or a therapist, right? And you're just telling them about symptoms you're having, and they might go off that essentially. I mean, depending on how well trained they are or how keen they are to even look for things like religious trauma. And without knowing that, it seems like that's a pretty big black box that needs to be open to really understand what's going on with someone.
Totally.
You mentioned, your parents, that they had maybe they had the right intentions, right? They wanted to help their daughter. But I guess, when did you find out that this is where you were going? Like, how did that chain of events occur?
Ooh, oh boy. Here's a great story for you. So I pretty much had just resigned to being this angry teen who just hated her family. Cause I'm just like, are y'all really going to pretend like you don't know what the hell's going on? Like, and again, I love my family. I did lose my dad to drugs. My mom is still an addict, but I get it. Addiction is complicated. I don't blame them at all. They were doing the best they could, but I had just resigned to fuck this. I'm just going to, eat my McDonald's, watch my Blockbuster, and mentally check out. And my grandmother did that. She placated me, took me to Blockbuster one weekend, got me my McDonald's. And my mom had gone out of town to look at a program. And I knew she was doing this, but, I'm just rolling my eyes like, okay, whatever. And she called me while she's away and told me, hey, I'm in Utah and I'm here with all these people. And I'm just rolling my eyes. And this is like back when Blockbuster was a thing. And I'm just thinking like, I've got my Blockbuster, new releases. I got my McDonald's. I'm chilling. It did not even register that this was actually going to happen. And within 24 hours, I did not even get to watch my Blockbuster. Like, this memory is so ingrained in me because I was thinking my grandma actually went and got me those movies knowing lo and fucking behold, I was not going to watch them. So it's like the manipulation that went into tricking me to just making it think like this is another weekend. The next morning, my grandma stepped out and they had a nanny there to watch me. Mind you, I'm 14, but the nanny knew too. So everybody was in on this. So my grandma steps out and she comes back and answers.
It's almost like an intervention, like a sort of deceitful intervention or something. Yeah.
And I open the door and she goes, "This is Chelsea and Todd, and they're taking you to Utah." And I just was like, what the fuck? Like, this is like out of a movie. And you have 30 minutes to pack. And I said, "How long am I going to be there?" And they said, "Pack for a long time." And I'm just like, you're in shock. And my grandma takes me to the airport and I'm so angry. Like, I'm silent. Like, I'm just seething. And I remember my grandma giving me $20 and she's like sobbing. And I just bought candy. And that was like, well, I guess I'm just going to eat a lot of sugar. And I get to Utah and my mom is there with all these people. And, my mom's an addict. She's out of touch with reality, right? So she's like, in her head, she's like, "Oh, this is so great. Look at this nice family. There's 30 kids. And they're just like crammed in this little room in this Victorian mansion." It's like so bizarre. I'm like, what? Am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, what is happening? And then within 12 hours, she was gone and I was left there. No phone, no way to email, nothing. Completely cut off from the world.
What's roughly the time, because you mentioned Blockbuster, so that I have some vague memories of Blockbuster, but
you can visit one in Bend, Oregon still, by the way. But, it's the last one.
I think I was there because I turned 18 2007, so I want to say this was 2002.
Gotcha.
2001, 2002. I was 14 when I went, so I don't know, do the math. But we're talking like early 2000s. I think I got out in 2003. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. As far as the mansion, I know that this might get us out of the chronicle narrative here, but are they still active to your knowledge? Like, are they still an active group or?
So they had facilities in Canada, Mexico, and Utah. They technically got shut down in Canada for animal abuse because they left their ranch and 40 horses starved to death. So then they got kicked out. They were like, you're no longer allowed to own livestock, like literally, according to the law, right? Because they obviously got in a lot of trouble. And then I know they got busted in Mexico for doing something. And then in Utah, they were arrested and charged with child abuse and hazing. And that was because one of the kids, this is after my time, ran out and ran down to the police barefoot. And the police came and lined everything up. And it from what I gathered, it sounded like the Waco raid or something. Like it just was like full on police cars, all the kids lined up, and they're just like, what's going on? And that is the last I heard of them being active. But I know through the grapevine they just have, you cut off one head of the dragon, another pops up. And I'm very outspoken about them. And so people don't talk to me anymore because they know that I'm not, I stopped drinking the KoolAid. So I don't have the inside status I used to, but before they used to tell me. But I don't talk to anybody who is still, if you are a sympathizer to Cheryl and Mark Sudweeks, you can leave me the fuck alone. Pardon my French. Like I want nothing to do with anybody who sympathizes with those people.
So yeah, because I definitely want to get into some of the details now of what you actually experienced, but are there people that wouldn't describe this as a cult or that think that what they're doing is very helpful to people or felt like that it changed their life in some way?
When I tell you that this was the Manson family, like you read Helter Skelter, that is exactly what I experienced. These people are so brainwashed into thinking that these people who beat the living shit out of us, starved us, I at one point was locked in a cellar for weeks on end. I mean, the level of abuse that went on in this place. I watched kids get shoved down flights of stairs, cigarettes put out on them. I mean, such egregious abuse. And these kids still think that, oh my gosh, Cheryl and Mark love you. I'm like, well, of course you think that. They cut you off from your family and they brainwashed you into thinking your family didn't want you. So it's truly Stockholm Syndrome. And I refer to the Manson trials where Manson carved a swastika on his head and then all his followers did. And that's what it's like. It's just like Cheryl says jump and you say how high. And there are kids, I shouldn't say kids, adults, we're all in our 30s and 40s now, who are still adamant like Cheryl and Mark as if they are the second coming of Christ. And I'm just like, it makes me so sad that you have gone into that level of abuse, that you have literally neurologically like rewired your brain into thinking these people love you. It's just sad, that you couldn't, enough time has passed, but you're still living in the Whitmore mansion 20 years later.
So what's your first memory of being there?
Woo! Going to the mansion, which I sent you a photo. If you look up the Whitmore mansion, it is bizarre. It's like you're in this small town. We're talking like maybe 10,000 people. There's nothing around. And we're in this old Victorian mansion. And I get there and I'm like, again, am I in the Bermuda Triangle? Like, what is this? And I remember getting in there and all these kids are just like in this room, like crammed, like knees to their chest crammed because it's so small. And that was my first introduction to what they call group, which is essentially a daily hazing and abusive situation where I call her the cult leader, Cheryl, would say, Logan's been stealing peanut butter. And then I'm like, what? I've been stealing peanut butter. And then everybody jumps in on, no, she's been stealing peanut butter. So that was my first memory, was going into group. And there wasn't a day that we didn't have group. And if we didn't have group, it was like, what's going on? Because you were just so used to somebody being in the hot seat. And then after that,
so that was the point of group was to single somebody out and make them feel guilty over something, whether they had done it or not.
And to like verbally, emotionally, and physically abuse them. And everybody took part of it, because if you didn't, then they were like, well, why aren't you doing it? Well, you must be guilty too. And it was just bizarre, because I'm just thinking, like, what was the point of that? Our parents are already paying like the equivalent of a down payment on a house to go there. Most of the kids were not well off. These parents were taking out loans in desperate attempts to save their parents' lives. So I don't even understand what the point of the abuse was. Like, you're already making hand over fist. What are you gaining from getting a bunch of kids to beat each other up and like turn against each other? Like, it's demented. But then at the end of it, Cheryl would just be like, but I love you and nobody else loves you. So you're like beaten up, bloody, disoriented, sleep deprived. And then but it's okay because Cheryl loves you and nobody else loves you. So I guess it was just a way to manipulate you into thinking you're just such an outcast and rejected, but it's okay. We love you.
This group, you mentioned that it's like adjacent, or at least like it has like Mormon connections. How much of that was integrated into, like, because you mentioned like this group and it sounds a lot like it has like some theological underpinnings. Like, how much of a role did that play in their discipline, in their abuse? Like, how much of that was incorporated?
So it's so bizarre because I technically got baptized Mormon while I was there. So
you were not a Mormon before you went then? You were, and your parents didn't have any connection?
No, not at all. But I became Mormon while I was there. I've done baptisms for the dead, the whole enchilada.
Did they advertise any kind of connection to LDS?
You knew.
So your parents didn't know that when they sent you there, that there was a religious connection?
And they just thought like, oh, this sweet little Mormon family with 6 kids, they ride horses. I mean, they look so wholesome. Like, you would never guess that these people are doing this. Like, it's so demented. I mean,
so was it almost presented as like an extended like foster home?
Pretty much. Like, they advertise it as like, we're this sweet Mormon family and we just want to help you and your kids out. And like, we just, they're going to ride horses and there's a spiritual component to it, but they brand it as so weird. They brand it as, it's a boarding school with horses and nature, and your kids are just going to get closer to Mother Earth and they're going to have this spiritual experience, but it's all very broad. And oh, by the way, they'll casually go to Mormon church with us, but it's no big deal just because we're Mormon. And your parents are just so desperate. They're like, sweet, like, what harm is this sweet little Mormon family in Utah going to do? But when you get there, you're handed a binder, and this binder is like a collection of all of this new age spiritual baloney. And I say baloney because it was like they were picking all of these things, right? There was this book called The Life You Were Born to Live, and you're assigned a number based off your birthday. I'm a 2911. And so that's the first thing you get. Like, oh, Logan, you're a 2911. But then you're also going to Mormon church on Sunday. So I was going to service and then going to all of the classes, had to go to class on Tuesday night. I don't even remember what it was, but like everything that you would do as an LDS person, we had to go to, even though we weren't technically Mormon. I was the only one in the program that went full conversion. So in addition to having your foot in the door of the LDS church, you're also practicing all of these bizarre new age, I don't even know, I don't even know where they were finding this stuff. I think this woman was just, quite honestly, out of her mind and just picking and choosing things as she could. But one of the most impactful memories I have was waking up every day at 4 a.m. and listening to subliminal messages. And it would start as, I think I am a child of God. I feel I am a child of God. I am a child of God. And it was just like this weird tape we had to listen to every morning. So it's like hard to say what this cult was, as much as like they were just kind of picking and choosing. And then what I would say is, by picking and choosing all these pieces, they put it all together, and then Cheryl would just put her spin on it, right? And with all the cult documentaries and books I've watched or read, it feels like this woman just tried to take a little bit of everything and then make herself out to be the leader, but none of it was her original thought. But you're so sleep deprived and disoriented that you don't even know,
No, and you're 14. And like,
Like,
what do you know? Right?
Yeah,
like
I don't talk to anybody. I'm eating oatmeal and ramen if I'm lucky, and moldy yogurt. Like, I am cut off from society. I'm getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep at night. I'm completely disoriented. And you're just like, what is even happening? And then you would go to the Mormon church, and it got to a point where you just thought, the missionaries are nice to me. I get a meal here. Maybe if I just convert, everything will be better. And like the sad truth is, like, that's just not what happened. Like, the abuse didn't stop because I converted. In fact, it just got worse. But then you're just like trying to think, like, what do I need to do to stop this happening? Like, you get to be a point where you're like, I just wish God would kill me, because like, if I converted to not go to hell, I'm in hell right now. Like, and I remember thinking, like, this is actually hell. Like, what I am experiencing and what I'm witnessing is a living hell.
How much of because, it seems like at its core, it had some like Mormon theological tenets. And then, like you said, she kind of pastiched a bunch of random ideas together and made it her own. How much of it, and at any point, did you believe in it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we went and did the Mormon handcart trail. We saw where Joseph Smith was killed, and I grew up Christian, so it wasn't a far extension for me. I was like, okay, gold plates, I'm here for it. Oh, extra book. All right, cool. Like, to me, it just felt like an extension of what I already believed. And I was a devout Christian growing up. Like, that's what's so funny is, like, I was raised in the church, went to summer camp. I mean, no alcohol, no weed, no sex, nothing. The only thing I had going on was responding to the abuse at home. And it's just interesting because I completely believed all of it. Like, and I remember calling my mom and being like, oh my gosh, you have to find out about this extra book. Like, it's the missing part of the Bible. But like, again, I'm just completely out of my mind. And when I like look back on that time in my life, and I remember coming home, I brought the Book of Mormon everywhere with me. And it was like, I was just a shell of a person, because I didn't even know what was reality anymore. I think it was just, I already felt so low that was the only thing that was keeping me going, was like that nugget of faith.
The faith aspect of it, you did all the LDS things. When you talk about like looking back about like you look back, and I think this is true about like any high control group, right? Like, you look back and you're like, dang, I can't believe how cringe I was, or I can't believe I used to say that, or I believed that. But when you look back and you look at the people who have also, are, or you could say, are cult survivors, are there any things that you saw there that were functional, like things that you could carry out into the real world that you're like, it was overall horrible, it's a terrible experience, but you know what, I kind of do miss that little thing.
I mean, the only good thing that got out of it was horses. I mean, I wasn't.
So you did get the horses, at least.
I did get the horses. I did get the horses, and I did learn to barrel race. So like, that was cool. So that, okay. I mean, and it's so bizarre because people are like, "Where'd you learn to barrel race?" I was like, "I was in a cult." They're like, "You were in a barrel racing cult?" And I'm like, stranger things have happened. But I mean, it's so funny because that was my family's. They just thought like, well, she can just be around horses. Because, I didn't come from money, but I would be around horses. So my family was like, oh, she's acting so crazy and she's suicidal and self-mutilating. We'll just send her to be with horses. And so now I talk to people like, oh, how'd you get into horses? I tell people, I'm like, oh, I went to a boarding school where there were horses. I'm not going to tell people I was in a cult. And how the hell do you even explain you were in a cult, but you were in 4-H? And I'm like, again, I don't, I wish it made sense. I'm still trying to process it. So yeah, I mean, I think that was the silver lining, but in hindsight, I would have much rather, gotten to go to high school and, I would have found horses anyways. I'm from Texas, right? And it's not like I discovered horses while I was there. I'd already knew about them, but I guess That's really the only takeaway I can say is like, I got to ride horses. But again, I was already doing that at home. So it's like, did that cancel out everything that it took from me? The abuse, the loss of time, the amount of therapy, the years of being like, if I thought I had bad mental health before I went, try being a cult survivor. Like, that's not something you can tell people. It's definitely not something most people can even conceptualize.
What other forms of, because you mentioned like that group session, what other forms of abuse did they, I'm assuming they obviously had like physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. What other, whatever you feel comfortable sharing? And then how did you cope with some of those?
Well, I'll speak to my experience. So I identified as being queer from like a very young age. And I was like very open about liking women, right? And I remember there was a girl there that we just like talked about it. Like we like talked about like, oh yeah, Christina Aguilera, like in the Dirty video, wasn't she hot? Like just like this innocent little queer things, right? Like nothing inappropriate. And she was my roommate. And I think there was just like that cute little crush. And like, she would tell me like, oh, I'm going to go to sleep naked. And I was like, okay, cool. But like, I had never been with a woman like in that way. So I didn't think anything of it. And I think somebody overheard us. And so one night I got pulled downstairs and they just smacked me across the face. And they're like, we know you're fucking Jenna. And I'm 14. I'm like, I just found out what sex is maybe a year ago. Like, what? Like, I remember like seeing Austin Powers maybe like the year before that. And I didn't even know half the references. So like the idea of being sexually active at that age was just like, what? No. And I got the living shit beaten out of me for a solid 3 days. I mean, I'm talking like, I'm surprised I didn't have my head cracked open because like I got my head bashed into a fireplace at one point because I would not admit that I was having sex with this woman. And I'm just like, I don't know what it's going to take to get it through your head that I'm not doing that. And it got to a point where I was like, well, if I just tell them I'm doing it, then they'll stop. And then Jenna's like, no, we didn't do it. And now they're like, oh, well, now you're lying. And I'm like, oh my God, which one is it? Do you want me to say I did it or not? And so this went on for a solid 2 weeks. I wasn't allowed to use menstrual products when I was on my period. So I just had to free bleed all over my clothes. I got my shoes taken away. I had to drink water out of a horse trough. I mean, you can like see my face getting like splotchy red as I talk about it. I was locked in a cellar during this time, like a pantry cellar. And I remember like that was the point where I was like, this is hell. Like I'm actually living in hell. And it's crazy because Parents' Weekend was around that time. And I got out of trouble just in time for Parents' Weekend. So I guess like they beat the gay out of me. Surprise, still like women. You didn't do it. Shocking. And my family came there and they saw me just bruised up and everything. And I was like, I fell off a horse. And they were like, okay. And I'm like, in hindsight, I'm like, how the hell did you see me bruised? I had no clothes. They gave away my clothes. My family came there, had to rebuy me clothes. And they just came there, batted eyelashes and left. So I'm like, y'all had to know what was happening. And you just turned a blind eye to it. Lucky for me, that was my big abuse. And after that, I just made it my mission to never do anything to step out of line. But what I saw happen to kids, I mean, it is, I'm pretty sure I blacked out most of it at this point because it was so painful to watch people be abused. I mean, I mentioned someone getting kicked down a flight of stairs. I watched kids get cigarettes put out on them. We were all underfed, malnourished every day. And just like physical abuse, taking turns just beating the living shit out of people. And if you ran away, you better pray that you got far because the abuse that happened when you came back, I'm surprised some of these kids lived through the physical abuse because it was so bad. But thank goodness somebody did get away once and they found cops. But had that person not run fast enough, I don't know what would have been waiting for them on the other end.
Was the abuse like punitive, or was there some sense that like if you just confess to this thing you're doing, the abuse will stop? Or like, what was the goal? Was there a goal, or was it just an emotional sort of outburst by the family?
It was just like, it was so erratic. It's like, I just like Jack Nicholson in The Shining erratic, like just like these like meltdowns and just like what? There was no rhyme or reason. And just like, so-and-so was stealing oatmeal. Like, yeah, she's stealing oatmeal because we're starving. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it made no sense. Or so-and-so had a bad attitude, or like, I'm gay. And it's like, just like the shit that they came up with, it made no sense. And then like, yeah, sometimes a kid was doing something. And I remember like a girl got caught giving a guy a hand job, and they locked her in a bathroom and they sprayed Lysol in there till she passed out. You know? So it's just like, what? And then you had like the runaway outfit. Like if you got caught running away, like the outfit you had to wear. And what's even more disgusting is you went to church in these outfits. And I'm like, all the Mormons that turned a blind eye to me wearing sweatpants with blood running down and they didn't say a goddamn thing, like, shame on you. Because there is absolutely no reason that these people saw what was happening and did not call the police. They turned a blind eye to every single kid, and they saw good and well what was happening. The Mormon missionaries were at our mansion regularly. Everybody at the church. It was no secret because you couldn't hide it, but no one did anything. So every single person who Nephi, Utah, is complicit in this place because they all knew what was happening. It literally took a kid running away. So I do have a very big resentment at the people who just turned a blind eye to what was happening.
Is your sense that there's a fair amount of this kind of thing going on in Utah within the LDS community? Like, did this seem like a one-off, or I don't know if you have any kind of sense of that?
I just feel like people are megalomaniacs and they love power. And when you take vulnerable people and you see a way that I'm like, well, if I take advantage of these people and I galvanize enough of them, then I can be treated like a messiah. Like there's something, if we look at cult leaders and what they embody, most of them started out as nobodies. Charles Manson was a nobody, you know, and Jim Jones, all these people, like how they started and like how they built up their personas, right? But they don't come from these extravagant backgrounds. Like they were nobodies. And it's like, I just wonder how somebody could take the Mormon truth and twist it and use it as a way to create like their own persona to be glorified, right? And it's just so shameful because I've mentioned before the podcast started, I know some of the kindest, most wonderful LDS people. If someone invited me back to the church, I would be there in a heartbeat, like the salt of the earth. And it's just so shameful that what happened to me then gets associated with the LDS church. Because what I experienced was not the doctrine. It's not the kindness I've received by LDS people. It's not how I felt when I was in the church. Outside of people turning a blind eye, I never felt any of this from the doctrine of Latter-day Saints. Like not at the Mormon Handcart Trail, not going to Joseph Smith's cabin. Even today when people mention Mormons, I'm like, oh yeah, they're wonderful. And I even have gone back to the tabernacle just because I think the choir's beautiful and I love it at Christmas time. So it makes me very sad that this gets conflated with their church.
I think that's really impressive that you've been able to separate those two things also, because I don't think it would be out of bounds for somebody who's been through what you've been through to just sort of blanket all of it, you know, as LDS and really develop a sense of resentment and bitterness toward that. So I think that says a lot about you as a person.
No, I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, at the end of the day, it's so funny. Like the phrase we used, one of our phrases was, we're all spiritual beings having a mortal experience. And I truly believe that. Right. And so I just took my experience in the LDS church, and I just, throw it into my potluck of my, larger spiritual outlook on life. I'm like, oh, I did some baptisms for the dead. Cool. I've also taught Sunday school. I've also, all these different things. And I leave the bad and I take the good and I move on.
To some degree, you were forced into drinking the Kool-Aid. You maybe drank some of it willingly. Sorry for that phrase.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it is a little on the nose for our cult, but it is. I apologize to anybody, to the victims of Jim Jones, but for the sake of this podcast, it is fitting.
Was there a time where you're like, maybe had cognitive dissonance that you were aware of, or maybe even instances where you were like, this is clearly, apart from the abuse, this is clearly wrong. When did you start that process of deconversion, deconstruction, and how are you like handling that now as well?
It makes me tear up because I had a boyfriend and he was the first person that I ever told what happened to me. And God bless the people in my life who have held space for this, because it is not freaking easy when someone tells you they're a cult survivor. And I really think that is when I started to unwind, because I was 17 and my first serious boyfriend. I won't say his name for this, but I could send this to him and he would tear up too, because there was a day where I just was having a meltdown. And he just was like, what is going on with you? And he didn't realize that I had decided to Google my program, and I saw that there was a lawsuit. And I just was bottling it up because I just didn't know what to do. And I just broke down. And I was like, I have to tell you something I never told before. And he's sobbing. He's like, Logan, we have to go to the police. Like, this is insane. And literally bless that man, because he had an intervention. He's like, we're calling your therapist right now. And I had gone 2 years going to this therapist, never telling her what happened. And if it had not been for that man giving me the courage to say, fuck that, we are getting your therapist and you need to speak your truth. And that's when it started to unwind. And I did give my deposition to be on the lawsuit. And I remember the prosecuting attorney who did my interview and everything. And then I got a phone call from Cheryl. And it was like, I was immediately back in Utah and I just couldn't go forward. And I called and was like, take me off. And they're like, are you sure? I was like, take me off. And I went down a deep, dark drug hole from there. I feel like prior to that, I was like drinking and stuff, I had tried some hard drugs. But from that point on, 18 till 21, I went into a very, very, very dark, like Requiem for a Dream dark drug hole. And I ended up getting sober at 21-ish, and I went to rehab, and the PTSD just continued. And my next boyfriend was the next one who just really supported me with getting cult support. So I really think it was the people that saw how crazy I was going, and not crazy in a derogatory sense, like compassion for me, that really encouraged me to unplug from the matrix. And they were that rationale to be like, hey, what you're going through, there's support for that, but you don't have to battle this. But I don't think if I hadn't had somebody to pull me out of it, I don't think I would have, made it out alive. I think I would have just kept using drugs till I died. And 2, I wouldn't have had an outside perspective to tell me it wasn't my fault, because I was just so twisted in my head that no one would believe me. And so to have 2 people believe me and do their part to help me get support, they're guardian angels. I would not be here without those 2 partners in my life. And they saved me because they believed me.
I want to get a lot more into what the recovery process looked like and how therapy helped you and stuff. But there's something I just want to cover that takes us back a little bit. We've talked about Cheryl a fair amount, and I feel like I would just like to hear more, because it sounds to me like she really got her hooks into you also, and that she has in other people as well. How? Who was she, and what was it that I don't know, that you connected with, or that was effective at manipulating all of you?
You know, it's so funny because when I look back on that, and when I think about the way that she would look, like when she was on her, like I'm convinced that woman was the devil. If there is a devil, like that was it, because the evil that was in her eyes when she would like just curate these hazing, nasty, abusive, just like, I don't even, like a dog pile where we're just all pounding on somebody and she would just get a high from it. Like that is seriously sociopath. Like you're actually feeding off these, like you're riling up all these people and you're just feeding off the energy. Right. And her backstory, LDS, her name is Cheryl Sudweeks, Sudweeks. She's on the internet. They paid a good amount of money to get scrubbed, but she's still out there. You can't get it taken off completely. And she had 6 kids.
Allegedly, we'll just throw in.
Yeah. And
unless you know that for a fact.
She had 6 kids. And all horseback riding, nature loving, I mean, you're living in Utah. I mean, it's beautiful, right? But you're also charging parents $50K a year. You're running 50 kids a year, $50K a pop. Yeah. Your kids are going to live a pretty chic life, riding horses and fly fishing and, doing whatever the hell they want. And it's just so bizarre because you would think like, this woman loves her grandkids. She loves Joseph Smith. I mean, I remember watching her just sob when we were at his cabin. But then she would just like have these mood swings. And it was just like every day you were just praying to God you weren't on her bad side. And it was just like, what can I do? And I just made it my mission. Like every day I just have to not get the shit beaten out of me. And it's interesting because she came after me when I came back, because I came back after I left the program to visit. And I drank alcohol for the first time in my life in the Bahamas after I left, right? So like, woo, I got drunk in the Bahamas at 15 with my stepsisters, like woo. And they completely disowned me. And I'm like, whoa, like I drank alcohol once. I can't like go confess. Like never had a touch of alcohol in my life. And they completely disowned me after that. So after that point, I was like, wow, I've really lost my mind. And then she contacted me after I gave.
So, like, did you get kicked out? What do you mean by disowned?
They disowned me from the Whitmore family. Like I was excommunicated from the family because they told me. So I came back to visit. And then I confessed. I was like, hey, I drink alcohol, right? And I even said like, hey, I want to go confess. I want to go meet with the pastor. And I want to go through the process of basically confessing and asking for forgiveness for drinking alcohol. And it was like, how dare you? Like you just converted for show. You didn't mean any of it. And I'm just thinking, wait, hold the hell up. My family dumped me with you guys. You beat the shit out of me. I convert. I am a happy little Mormon. I'm doing baptisms for the dead, like going to Mormon church in Dallas, Texas, walking around with the Book of Mormon, wearing my undergarments. Like I'm doing the whole enchilada. And I come back and I try and do the right thing and be honest about having alcohol in the Bahamas. And y'all want to forsake me? Woo! So that was the biggest slap in the face. Especially considering I knew everything that was going on behind closed doors, like all the shit the kids were getting away with and the fact that they were coming after me. And I'm like, I knew all the things that they were doing behind closed doors and like hiding. And it's so crazy. I never did anything wrong. Allegedly, I'm like gay. And it's like, well, hi, I do like women, but that's not a crime. But the kids that came after me, I'm like, wait, I know all of the things that y'all are hiding under those, you know, hiding in the shadows. And y'all want to kick me out when I come and be honest. And I wasn't even in the program anymore. They tried to convince me to stay longer. And I was like, no, I want to go home. And then so she contacted me after I gave my deposition and I left. And then she contacted me again on Facebook, maybe like 5 years ago. And I went off on her. And she tried to deny everything. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just saw, I was like, you are one sick, twisted devil to sit here and deny. And I wrote out verbatim. I was like, you did this, like a whole page. And she denied everything. And I was like, you belong in hell. And I blocked her on Facebook. So she's a very sick person. If you could even consider her a person, I would say she's a demon.
Is she okay? Because cults usually have like you mentioned, they usually have personalities or a personality. Would you say that she's like the main head honcho?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And spouse is just in it for the ride.
Yeah, the spouse just hung out along for the ride. I think he was scared of her. He's like, you're fucking nuts, but I'm married to your ass, and you'll probably kill me if I leave. So I'm stuck. And he didn't say anything. All the kids, everybody. But I'm like, the kids are getting bankrolled. The husband's afraid to leave. And this woman's just like high as on God knows what. Because we all got taken. If you were on meds, you were taken off of them when you got there. And she had all of the meds stockpiled downstairs. So God knows what kind of cocktails she was making all night. And yeah, I just think.
Do you suspect that there was drug abuse on her part?
I can't imagine somebody being sober and that crazy. Like this is like, I just, like I said, the evil, I've never seen somebody in real life, like in horror movies, like have that look in their eye. And I just can't imagine going to that level of like sinister sober. Like you would have, to me, like you have to enter a different reality to go to that level of abuse. And maybe I just haven't encountered that outside of horror movies. But to me, I'm like, there's no other explanation for her erratic behavior and just how evil she was. But then at the same time would be so sweet and nice. Like the next day, it's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Which might have been part of her game, right? Is to tear you down and then build you up, and you're constantly seeking her affirmation within this group, it sounds like. And not only is that going to save you from abuse, but then you're also probably getting love bombed when you're doing well. What I'm also interested in, you called it like pseudo Mormon theology that they pushed on you. What did that look like? What were some of these ideas that they were teaching you that went beyond just like sort of normal Mormon theology?
Just like I said, like the 2911 book, it's like the life you were born to live. And I just like all these like Louise Hay's, you can heal your body. Like she just took all of these, any new age book that she thought was interesting. It's like she Xeroxed, copied pages out of these books and then put it in your binder. And then like whenever she felt like it, she's like, oh, add this to your binder. So it was this ever evolving, spiritual binder. And we had to read it we had to read certain parts every day, but then every Sunday was like your spiritual homework. And I mean, like, I hate to say this. I've done too many drugs to remember the exact things that were in there because I had to black it out. But I mean, we're talking like this thick. And the thing that I remember the most is the 2911. And like your 2 meant something, and that's based off your birthday. And that's based off the book, The Life You Were Born to Live.
Like it was connected to some kind of personality type or a way that you should live or something.
And like how you're supposed to live. And it was just like, what was in that binder? Like it didn't make any sense because to me, I'm like, we are following the Mormon tenets, right? Even if you weren't baptized, we still were surrounded by it. But then we're doing like all this weird new age stuff that like, I'm like, this feels occultish. Like this doesn't even feel, this feels like contradictory to the Mormon religion, right? Like it felt like bizarre. Like it didn't make sense. And then she would just go off on these like manic rants, like these spiritual rants, like I remember like, I feel like at one point, she thought she was possessed by Joseph Smith, like some like snake oil shit. Yeah, like snake oil shit, you know, talking to animals. Like it just like, what? But it reminds me of those religions where they throw you on the ground and they heal you and like they're talking to animals and speaking in tongues. Like it was like all of these random parts just like combined into whatever she felt like that day, whatever Cherylism. And then she just would have these like little phrases. And I remember the phrase, like I said, we're spiritual beings having a mortal experience. And it's just like whatever she could pick and choose because it served her that day, she would throw it at you.
That's very fascinating. The whole New Age thing and like it has parallels, right, with like the charismatic movement, like in the evangelical belts in the United States and all of that. Pentecostalism, the snake people, and the 2911, like in terms of like New Age, like numerology, like the what is it called? It's like a super popular book, The Secret.
Yeah. So the book was The Life You Were Born to Live. Like that is the book I remember. And like before you got there, they'd be like, when's your birthday? And like, not for astrology purposes, because they need to figure out what your life path is supposed to be. And like, you're like, I'm 14. I'm like, I don't freaking know. I don't watch TRL and like eat McDonald's. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. So yeah, it was just bizarre. It was like I said, it was like two different worlds, the New Age world and the Mormon world. And I'm like, which one am I supposed to follow? And then of course I grew up in the church. So I'm like, how the heck do I even compare this to like what I've grown up with? So I'm like, I've got like three different worlds happening at once.
The people who said that have also made it out, but the ones that are still stuck in like Cheryl land, are they still living there? Are they in a relative vicinity to the house, or like what's the?
I mean, some of the kids like went on to like work for them, like stayed there. Some kids moved to Utah. I mean, I'm just like, what the fuck, man? It's like the cage is open, go. And it's like, I didn't even want to leave because I hated them. I was so sad to leave, but I was 15 at the time and I wanted to wear Hollister and like Abercrombie and again, TRL. Cause
what a sinner.
I know. Like but I had, within the garments, of course, like modest Abercrombie, but like,
does Abercrombie make a undergarment, Mormon undergarment?
Well, I was going to make it work. I was like, I gotta be hip. I gotta be hip, but like keep it LDS hip. And I just, it was so innocent. And I just like going to the Bahamas. Like I remember being like hearing Usher and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard real music. And it was just like coming out of a bomb shelter where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like Usher and Abercrombie. And like, it was just so exciting to be in the real world, but it wasn't because I wanted to leave. I would have stayed, which is like even crazier, but I just was in my sinner, human desires. I wanted to go out into the real world. Right. And it's kind of like Rumspringa with the Amish leave. Like I wanted to go out into the Gentile world and not be in this little insulated bubble of Utah. And it was so weird being Mormon back in Dallas. I was like, oh, wow, it's really easy to be Mormon in Utah. Like, this is crazy. Like the Mormon church in Dallas does not compare to like being in Utah. But I still wanted to leave. But again, it wasn't because I didn't love them. Like in my abused head, I was like, I love them. They love me. Like, I don't want to leave.
A lot of these high control groups / cults, they create the sense of dependency with their members. Usually it's like you depend on them for love, you depend on them for resources, community, emotional support, etc. So was there a narrative that they fabricated that, because for example, Nick and I, we grew up Jehovah's Witness, and there's a sense of like, oh well, like almost all Christian groups, they have that eschatology of like, well, the end of the world is coming. If you go to the Gentile world, you're gonna die, and so you need to be part of or be in the church to basically survive. Did they keep true to that in terms of their LDS theology, or was there an added layer with Cheryl? Was there something that you needed to get specifically from her to be okay?
You were convinced that your family didn't want you, and that's why you were there. And I remember like them telling me that my mom was a nymphomaniac, and I'm like, what? Like, it was like just like the most bizarre things. They were like, well, your mom's a nymphomaniac, and like you can't go back there. And I don't even like, who even uses that term? Like, that's like, I am 36 and I have never heard someone use the term nymphomaniac, right? Like, what? And like, that was their reasoning for me not needing to go home. Like, first of all, how would you even know what my mom's sex life is like? And they didn't even know she was an addict. And even if you did,
seems like that wasn't on the entry form,
right?
Probably.
Are you a nympho?
List here. Yeah.
Like it felt like such a what's the word? Like something you would just say about a sinner, right? Like, oh, well, your mom's a nymphomaniac and she's having all these men. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure y'all met my mom for maybe 24 hours when she dropped me off and then ditched me here. But nice try. And just like these weird things, like, well, they don't want you to come home. Like, they want you to stay here. In fact, they want us to adopt you. And I was like, nope, I want Hollister and McDonald's. Usher's calling my name. I gotta go. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I gotta be 15. I gotta be 15 for real. I've already been in here for a year. And like the desire to be a normal teenager just overrode. There was just nothing they could sell me on. And my year was up. So what could they do? But they tried everything under the sun. And it's funny because I got to go home for like 2 days and then go back. And it was under the premise that my mom is trying to move districts for schools. And she's like, I need Logan to come home for 2 days because I'm trying to figure out where I should move for school districts. And I like remember getting to go home for 2 days and being like, oh, wow, this is crazy. But I still wanted to go back. Like there was like, I felt like this guilt for being at home before my program was up. Right. And it was just, you were just so convinced that like, no, I have to be here. Like I'm not supposed to be here, even though I was allowed to go home. Like I felt this like angst to get back to the Utah. Cause like I needed to be my plan.
Yeah. Was there some kind of camaraderie you had with the other like people in the family? Was that part of it? Was there any kind of draw there?
I mean, honestly, I had nobody. I mean, I've always been a weirdo outcast. Like and now I'm like this little extrovert. Hello, we met in an Uber. But
I was gonna say, you seem like you're pretty easy to meet and get along with to me.
But that took a long time. I've always been a weirdo. And I just like, I did not have an ally in that program. Like I just was the odd duck. And so I didn't really have camaraderie. I was kind of just like a lone wolf who just, didn't get along with anybody. I was just a big nerd. I got picked on my whole life up until like, I don't know, I hit my 30s and I was like, fuck y'all, I'm 30. I don't need this baloney anymore. But God, like I feel like I was just kind of like a lone wolf in the program. And I think the only thing that insulated me was like, well, I'm LDS. So whatever, I'm hanging out with the missionaries and like, bless those missionaries. Cause it was like, I looked forward to them coming every day. Cause it was just like, I just insulated myself into like doing the lessons, reading the Book of Mormon, like going and just like following that. So I was able to just kind of buffer myself from what everybody else was doing. I saw what the kids were doing that wasn't okay. I knew who was having sex. I knew who was sneaking out. I knew of a girl who managed to hide a pregnancy for 6 months. Like, what the hell? Like, I knew all of it. And I just was like, nope, stay in my lane, just be Mormon and tune everybody out. And I honestly think that saved me. Like, just having that, just follow the Book of Mormon, go to church, mind your P's and Q's, be overly nice, and just keep your mouth shut is what got me through the rest of my time there.
Yeah, and I think that relates to something you said earlier, too, about how you said like the city, the town itself is kind of complicit in allowing this to happen. But what you just described, I think, is pretty common in high control groups. And to the extent that the broader LDS church is a high control group, that's a different discussion. But I think there is kind of this sense when you're in these groups of kind of, I just sort of want to keep my blinders on, kind of keep my head down, because if I peek my head out too far and make myself a problem, that usually doesn't go well for me. And I don't know if that kind of adds to the desire to kind of not ask too many questions, not pry too much. And maybe that was also a dynamic in the in the town also.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, I knew the girls that were doing like bad things, but I was like the odd duck anyways. So like I didn't get included. No one was asking me to go out on dates. Like no, they weren't confiding in me. Like I just knew they were doing things, but I didn't know what they were doing. And I was like, whatever, I'm just minding my own business anyways. Like I'm just going to read my Bible and read my books and mind my business. And yeah, it was very bizarre to be in it, but also be out of it. And it was because I think because I had the Christian background, it was very easy for me to just be drawn to the LDS component and just like fixate on that. So like, thank goodness I had that faith. Cause like, I don't think I would have survived if I had not had that foundation versus the other kids who were drug addicts, who were partying, like who did not have that background. I think they didn't have a way to just like put their head down and focus on just have faith. And that's what got me through it, you know, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't know what else would have gotten me through that except faith.
So you mentioned a significant other was who kind of approached you and helped you really start kind of tackling some of these things. And that's always one of those things where it's like, you know, a lot of the time it's seeking out that outside intervention, right? That support group, developing that. So I'm kind of interested to hear about how you were able to develop those things, like, you know, going through therapy, maybe. I don't know if you have or not. And then, you know, what has that looked like to you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm the first to admit that I was, like I said, a very bad addict. And you know, from 15 till 18, it was just like kind of just random partying. But like I said, from 18 to 21, it was like full blown. We are like using with the intention of like blacking out our existence. Like I need to black out every memory I possibly have. I didn't consciously think that, but it's interesting.
You were self-medicating,
yes.
Basically.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that started when the person that helped me get this going and like opened up that can of worms when we broke up is when I just went down the rabbit hole. And so when I got sober and I got diagnosed with complex PTSD, I got back into the church, did that for 6 years, ended up leaving because I was like, oh, nope, this is kind of right back to where I already went through religious trauma. I don't need this dogma. So I tried that out. I tried AA. Those did not work for me. And I say it didn't work for me in the sense of like, it wasn't broad enough. Like it wasn't nuanced enough. I was like, yeah, I don't have to drink, but like, that's not getting rid of the anxiety in my body. And like, I remember I was almost 6 years sober. And I mean, I was like doing the steps. I'm like, I'm doing everything. Like, I don't know how to get rid of this stuff in my body. And my sponsor at the time was like, you're too fucked up for someone who has 6 years sober. Like, I think you need to go to some kind of trauma therapy. And I was like, wow, I just got dumped by my sponsor. This is crazy. And it just goes to show you that alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, whatever, like it's just a symptom. And it wasn't until I call this my holy trinity, psychedelics, somatic experiencing, and meditation, that I really started to heal. Because once my sponsor broke up with me, I went right back into my addiction. I was like, well, here we go again. And it just was this endless cycle. Like I could not get relief from the PTSD symptoms. And I mean, didn't matter if I was sober completely or if I was using every day. But I had a girlfriend tell me, she's like, I would really look into somatics. And I was like, well, what's that? She's like, it's a therapy where you identify these trauma energy that's stored in your body. And I was like, And I'll just be frank. There was a Labor Day weekend in the pandemic. It was 2021. And I took a hero dose of MDMA. Did not mean to, but I did. And I think that was a true God experience, because when I say my nervous system just blew open and it was like I got a clean slate. And it was a spiritual experience. And I was just going to use MDMA like I would, any other drug time, any other time I was going to use drugs, but I had no idea that that was going to be the pivotal moment that everything changed. And the next day I told my friend, I was like, dude, something happened last night. And I explained it to her. She's like, I think you need to do somatics. And that's when I started working with a meditation coach. I hired a somatic experiencing practitioner. And I really just started to learn to get into my body. And I started spending time alone and just allowing the energy to move out of me. And like when I say I went into such an introverted, dark night of the soul where I was like, I don't know what's coming out of me, but I just got to face it. I went there. And thank goodness the pandemic happened, because if I hadn't had that, I would have just kept using and kept being busy and kept distracting myself, but I didn't have anything else to do. So I feel like I just excavated all of the gunk in me. And my partner at the time, we were in Colorado, he's like, I'm going to start growing you mushrooms. He's like, if you're going to do this psychedelic thing, I want to do it in a way that is going to help your PTSD. So he did all this research and he's like, all right, if you take them this time, I can sit in the other room, just close the door, do what you need to do. I'm here. And I remember there was one time he like took me to the mountains and I just was throwing up and crying. And he's like, I've got you. And again, just like God bless these people that just saw what I was going through and they did what they could to help me move through it. And we're now in 2025 and it's like, I'm a different person. And I'm telling you, like, there was no amount of talk therapy that got me to where I am that meditation, somatics, and psychedelics could replace. Like those three things are the reason I'm not 6 feet under. Because it wasn't about talking about it. It was about allowing myself to just feel it and release it on my own terms and just being safe in my body. And I think now it's just being alone, being silent, like that is my soul medicine, because nobody can take away the safety that I've created within myself. And I think there is a quote from Eli Wiesel. I may be saying his last name wrong, the Holocaust survivor. And he talked about how the Nazis had just taken everything from him. And they said, well, they can't take away my human dignity. And that is what kept him going. And I think that's what meditation taught me. And the somatics and the psychedelics that kind of just cleared it out, is that no matter what's happening around me, I can always go inward. And like, that's truly how I live my life now. And like, that's how I've healed. Outside of like the wonderful, caring people that have helped me, it's really just been learning to go inward and face the shit that's in me and make peace with it.
Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Yeah, as listeners of this podcast will know, if they've listened to a few of our recent episodes, your experience with psychedelics is not unique to you.
I know. God bless psychedelics. Like, I swear I will die on that hill. I know so many people in recovery, they're like, you're just using it to get high. And I'm like, well, I'm not dead now, am I? So if you have another solution, please let me know. And I think
and of course, to give the obligatory, we're not encouraging, psychedelic use, but it is undeniable that a lot of people who have been through complex PTSD, religious trauma, and these sorts of addiction issues related to these kinds of traumas have found tremendous benefit from using psychedelics. I am not one of them yet, unfortunately.
We'll convert you.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I intend to join your ranks soon enough, but I'm glad to see that there is like a lot of progress here. Colorado, you mentioned, has decriminalized shrooms, so it's not actually even illegal here, and there are starting to be clinics that are working with microdosing and with PTSD victims, and there are a lot of neuroscientists now who are getting on board with the benefits of psychedelics in combating PTSD also. So there's starting to be a fair amount of like empirical evidence here too that there's a lot of benefit. It's not just anecdotal at this point. So
and it's funny because
it's interesting. It's just been a reoccurring theme. It seems like almost everybody we've been interviewing lately, and we have another guest coming up in a couple of weeks who's a very well-known former Jehovah's Witness, and he has also had very profound experiences on psychedelics that he's recently been talking about on his YouTube channel. So this is just it's very interesting to me how much this keeps coming up. And then also associated with that, which you touched on here, is something like mindfulness or the like meditation and the power that's had. Which we just recently did an episode on also. And something that I'm personally really interested in looking more into. So
yeah, it's funny. People come to my house and they're like, "Where's your TV?" I'm like, "I don't have one." And they're like, "Well, you don't have background noise on?" I'm like, "No, I sit in silence a lot." And they're like, "That's weird." And I'm like, "No, it's addicting." I'm like, I'm literally addicted to it. And don't get me wrong, I love my music. I love my podcast. I listen to a lot of books. I read. I watch TV on my laptop. But like, I am addicted to my own company now. I don't like getting drunk. I don't like getting fucked up like I used to. In fact, like, it makes me viscerally uncomfortable when I like cross that threshold because it's too much. And even with psychedelics, if I'm hallucinating, it's too much, right? Like, I know that threshold of like where I need to go to open up that part of my mind. But truly, like, the peace that I have cultivated through, like I said, my Holy Trinity, it's changed my life. It saved my life. I would not be here had I not discovered that little combination. And truly, it's like healed my relationship with a higher power. Like, I still identify as a Christian, but now I'm like, you will catch me dead before I walk into a church that tries to deny my experience or tells me like the way I'm doing things is wrong. And I'm like, nope. Like, I have a great relationship with God these days. I feel extremely comfortable. I have no issue with dying. I even joked around. I was like, dying kind of just would be like meditation, just extended. And my friend's like, wow, that's really like, and I'm like, no, think about it. Like, if I feel at peace in meditation, why would I not feel at peace in death? Right. So there's just nothing that anybody could take away or do to me or say to me that would change how I feel after everything I've been through. And like where I'm at, I'm just completely like, I want to say indifferent, but truly just at peace. Like, I'm content.
For as difficult as going through the cult experience is, I think you're hitting on a pretty good benefit of it on the other side, which is, we have like a spider sense for controlling thinking, authoritarian thinking, cult like behavior or thinking patterns where, like you said, if you walk into a church and somebody starts telling you the way that you need to have a relationship with God or whatever, it's like, peace, I'm out.
I will
right?
laugh
Like,
in your
you're
face.
just-
I will literally laugh. I'd be like, oh, that's hilarious.
Right.
Goodbye.
Yep.
Yeah, God is.
I think that's right. And a lot, for people that haven't had that experience, if they haven't had their thinking controlled and then broken free of it and seen what that feels like, I think people have a hard time understanding how easy it is for people to control your thinking. And so you develop at least a better radar, I think, for picking up on attempts to do that, whether it's whether it's through advertising or social media or various kinds of business schemes or political cults or et cetera. That we're seeing there's so many different versions of something like a high control group, or people that are trying to influence people's thinking and take control of their mind in some way for their own benefit. And being tuned into that is almost a necessity at this point, I think, where we're at.
Yeah,
culturally.
if you can't think for yourself and be okay with just being a lone wolf, where I'm just like, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of people that love me, but I have very few people that I feel like they get it, right? We're on the same level. And I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm so content just being alone. I mean, granted, I have 3 cats. They're my buddies. But I'm like, listen, you can do whatever you want. Like, I have seen the devil and I have gone to hell. And I am very content with the way I see the world. And there's just no one that can shake me up or tell me I'm wrong. And also, like, how arrogant is anybody in this world to think they have it figured out? And I think that's what psychedelics has taught me. I'm like, no one has it figured out. You get to choose your own adventure and make this, whatever this human experience is, you get to make it what it is for you, right? But I'm not going to sit here and act like I have it figured out. I have it figured out for me. But you do you, and I will wish you well. And, we can agree to disagree, but I don't feel a need to proselytize to anybody or get them to sway what they believe. I will respect your beliefs, and I'll just stay in my own lane because what I'm doing is working just fine.
I was gonna ask, and you kind of already answered this in some way, but I was wondering if any of your practices are grounded in any in quote mainline tradition. You mentioned that you're still in some sense identifying as a Christian, or at least like adjacently, but I'm interested in like your Trinity because I've also had psychedelic experiences, and we can talk about those if you'd like, but I've never heard of the term somatics. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I know that some of the audience members might be a little bit more familiar with psychedelics and or meditation and mindfulness practices, but I think that's a new term for me and maybe for some of the other listeners. So can you expand a little bit more about that?
Yes, I would love to, because I am such a proponent of somatics. So Peter Levine is a therapist who coined the term, and he studied animals in the wild. And when a gazelle, for instance, is hunted by a lion, when that gazelle is able to escape death, what they will do is they will shake violently, and then they'll kind of just freeze, and then they take off. And he was like, what is that? And what he realizes is after they have that brush with death, they shake out the energy, and then they go, but they have to get rid of the adrenaline. But what happens when somebody doesn't get to finish the trauma cycle? Let's say you were a victim of Hurricane Katrina. Well, what happens if you weren't able to get the proper therapy and like process it? You weren't able to complete that cycle. So that adrenaline is now stuck in your body, right? And so when you get triggered, that cycle gets reactivated. And so the concept of somatics is discovering what energy is still trapped in you, right? And it's proven with PTSD is these triggers, there's something neurologically that goes off when you are reminded, right? Whether it's a sound or someone nearby or a song, and your brain goes back there, right? So somatics is about figuring out what's still there. Like, what is that? What needs to finish? Like, how do we complete the cycle? And I describe it as I feel it, I move it, I release it. And that looks like, for me, dancing. I'm a huge proponent of dance. God forbid someone ever puts a hidden camera in this house, because it's going to look real weird. But I'm dancing, God, probably like 50% of my day is just me jamming. And I will literally be in headphones, like in the grocery store, just like jamming out. Like, I don't care. Cause to me, it's just my body's way of just like keeping things flowing. I ride horses. That's been a huge way for me to just, I say mind body connection, just like feeling and moving and allowing whatever comes up. You know, if I need to cry when I'm dancing, if I need to cry while I'm doing yoga or riding horses, it's just allowing what emotions come to the surface for me. And then I just allow it to physically move out of me. So I would just consider it like a cycle. And when you work with somatic practitioners, there's different variations of it. A lot of it is like hand gestures. Like when I talk with my therapist who is certified in somatics, she'll notice, she's like, hey, you're doing this with your hands while you talk like that. And I'm like, oh, am I? She's like, yeah, keep doing it. Right. And so there's just all these different ways that you can practice it. But the general concept of it is the energy that is in your body, giving it a way to move. Right. And getting that mind body connection, and getting everything in sync, right? Because when you have these traumatic experiences, you just shut down, right? It's really scary to get in your body. I mean, there was a long time where I couldn't have sex, like, because I was so disconnected from my body. And now it's funny because, like, when I'm intimate with somebody, they're like, wow, you're so present. And I'm like, well, let me tell you how long it took me to get there. And I've even had people...
I had to join a cult to do this. Yeah.
I've even had people like, your eye contact during sex is really intense. And I'm like, I'm embodied. And they're like, wow. But it's like, I've worked so hard to just learn to feel safe within myself. And now it's like, again, it's addicting. It's addicting, just taking a deep breath and feeling like regulated and not feeling like I'm crawling out of my skin or I have to get high to get through the day.
This reminds me of a book that was important to me and my mom, who's also now woken up from being a witness, which was called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
It was a pretty well-known book. Is that kind of a related idea?
Yes.
Is this idea that, like, when that literally abuse and trauma, it actually does, like, you know, people like to make fun of the idea that, like, words are violence, but literally, like, abuse is a form of violence in the sense that it actually changes your brain chemistry or your maybe not your brain chemistry, but the way your neurons are linking together or firing or whatever. And that when you don't deal with these kinds of changes and the abuse that you're receiving, that it's going to come out somehow. It's going to come out physically somehow.
Yeah.
And so you have to, like, address it, or it's going to come out in ways that you maybe don't want. It might manifest itself in chronic pain, in all sorts of other types of things where you're going to start trying to hunt for solutions to these other problems when really the root cause was this unresolved trauma.
Absolutely. I used to break out in this horrible rash. I mean, it was terrifying when I would talk about Utah. I mean, it was like head to toe, just splotch. And it was just so embarrassing. It's like, when I tell you, like, my PTSD ran my life. I mean, it ran my dating life. It ran my school, work, everything. But it was not until I started doing somatics that I started to, like, release it. And yeah, like, I feel some of it coming up now, but when I'm done here, I'll just take a walk, you know, take a bath, and I'm good. But it's like before, oh my gosh, like there was just certain things I could not physically do. Even just going back to Utah. And now I'm like, I listen to the Mormon Tabernacle at Christmas time. I'm like, they go hard with the Christmas, you know? But it was not until I would say, like, release the valve and, like, let some of that hot air go out. And even now it's like the tone of my voice has changed. I speak slower. I'm not, my friend calls it Disney on ice, when I'm just like, wow, like, I don't have that manic energy in my body anymore because I've released the valve. So if you don't release it, it's going to come out in a backwards way, whether it's an addiction, chronic illness, anger problems. I mean, honestly, just like there's so many ways it can come out. And it's like, unless you find a way to deal with it, it's going to sabotage your life.
As far as psychedelics go, I know that we said we give the little warning about, we don't promote the use of psychedelics, but you mentioned that you've had a hero's dose and that you've had an experience of God. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I know I know that as someone who has also done psychedelics, when you try to explain psychedelic experiences to people, it's like, this is just a bunch of woo. It's, it's a bunch of stuff that people just don't really understand. So I'm just curious to see what your experience on psychedelics was or has been.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm such a proponent. I took mushrooms like a week ago, and it's like, it's so funny because like, I'm to a point where like, it's such a integrated part of my life that it's just like, I joke around, like, it's just a maintenance. And again, I don't take it to the point of hallucinating. Like I know my threshold, and that hero dose was, I think it was a God thing, because I would have never intentionally done that. And it's the only time that I've had that intense of an experience. But at the time we were in the pandemic, and I was in I've gone through intervals of addiction, right? Like they've all been different, different phases of addiction, different phases of it, yada, yada. And at this point it was just, I would call it my daily maintenance, where it wasn't not fear though. Like it wasn't like Requiem for a Dream dark. Like that was a different time in my life in the rave club scene. This was just I don't want to exist, so I'm just going to cope with the day, and I'm just going to be high enough to get through the day and function. But I was still somewhat functional. And my friends and I were like, well, let's take some Molly, because what else are we doing during the pandemic? We're not doing anything. And we all dosed out our Molly, and everyone's like, okay, see you tomorrow morning. Bye. Like, so we're all just going to take Molly by ourselves. And I had my tarot cards. I was like, I'll just, read some tarot cards, take some Molly. And when I tell you, it's like, it hit me all at once. And it was like, I remember just like just swiping all of my tarot cards off the bed, and was like, oh my God, this is so intense. Like, this is like, I didn't think I was going to die. Like there was no feeling like, I've had those drug experiences where I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. This was just like, oh my gosh, like this is the closest I think I have gotten to like another dimension of high, in the sense of, I shouldn't even say high, like it's like worlds collided, right? Like it was very, I couldn't tell reality from, I don't know, it was like the Matrix or something. Like, where am I? Like, what is happening? And it just became so clear, like my humanness and like all these things I was like stuck in. And the phrase that kept coming up is like, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. And I just kept saying that. And the next day, I remember just like, I had to just lay on my bed and write it out, because like, there's nothing else you can do. But it wasn't, it wasn't dark. It wasn't scary. I didn't feel overwhelmed. It was just like, I just had to lay there and write it out. And the next day I told my friend, I was like, I had a spiritual experience. She's like, what happened? I was like, I feel like I just got wiped clean. Like, it just like, and I think there was just something that took over me that really allowed, I described it as like just doing demolition. Like it was just like a blank slate. And the only phrase that kept coming up was like, it's too much, it's too much. And I think what I took away from that is I was trying so hard to fight it, that what I really had to do is just surrender. And it was like, once I just it was like I surrendered to being that high, and I was like, well, you're higher than a kite now. There's nothing you can do. And I just wrote it out until it stopped. And like what I took away from that is like, I can't make this go away. I just have to integrate it. I just have to write it out. And it was like, once I stopped forcing it, and once I stopped identifying as like, well, I have PTSD, I'm a cult survivor. It's like once I just stopped doing the most essentially and just stopped doing less is when things shifted. And I think that was the takeaway. It's like I was always trying to do more. And it was like I actually had to stop and just be. And that's when everything shifted. And since then, it's like that's how I take psychedelics now, where I'm just going to sit back. And that's all I do. I just sit back. And that's what it taught me, to just be, just like literally plant my feet and just be. And the Bible verse, be still and know that I am God. Like that's what comes up for me, is like, I can just sit here and the world keeps turning and I'm okay. And I don't have to do anything because I'm taken care of. And that's what I think I got out of that hero dose.
Well, I'm going to go take my shrooms that I've been holding on to for a minute. I think.
You're like,
no,
well, it's time I go.
I just got my hands on like 6.5 grams. But I'm, the timing just hasn't been right yet. I've had them for a couple weeks, but
you'll know.
I'm going out of town now for like a week, but
the time will come.
I'm waiting. Yeah, I know. I'm ready.
It'll happen. When you know, you'll know. It's like, I don't know. Now I just like when it happens, I'm like, it's time. And I don't know. I just do it when I know it's right.
It's funny that you mention the like psychedelics in terms of like their ability to, I don't know, process things. I usually tell people that like my experience with psychedelics has been that I wouldn't say that it's a substitute for anything. It's just that it puts you in a state that of extreme introspection. What you choose to do with that heightened level of introspection, that's up to you, right? That's still up to the individual to determine, to take away, to actually do something to process. The drug itself, the psychedelic, it just puts you into that heightened state. It doesn't really, it's not going to cure your depression. You can use it to, take steps in tackling your depression or trying to find what would you call it? Like reasons to lessen triggers in your life that lead to depressive episodes or things like that. One of the experiences that I had was that it helped me stop smoking. So I was smoking pretty heavily for a small period of time. And I was also kind of, I wouldn't say dependent, but I was, it's in similar fashion. I was like smoking, I was smoking weed to kind of just get by, right? Like, so like, oh, I just got to get high. Wake up in the morning, get high, go to class, get high. Go to the supermarket. Oh, I have to make sure that I get high before I eat, So there was this dependency that I had with it. And after I had a certain amount of psychedelic experiences, I just realized like this isn't doing anything for me. So then, I was able to kind of slowly, well, actually even like that same day, I was like, no, I'm not going to smoke. And I haven't smoked. Well, I have smoked, but I haven't smoked with an urge or dependency towards it. I've been able to take the action. Like I want to smoke because I can smoke. Like it's not because I want to, like I'm craving the cigarette or I'm craving smoking pot. It's now I'm the agent behind that.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, now it's like I'm drinking wine because I want to, or I'm smoking weed because I want to, but there's not the compulsion. And now even when I do have the compulsion, I'm able to feel it and I'm able to like cry, because like I still have those days where I'm like, damn, I just want to be high and like high on some good shit, not on weed. And I just like let myself, right? Like I'll be real with you. I love my stimulants. Like I am send me to the moon and back. Cause when I'm dysregulated, I don't want to be here. Right. But what psychedelics have taught me is like the medicine is in being when you don't want to be here. Because when that high's worn off, you're right there and you feel worse. And like what I've learned with psychedelics is like the way through the way to get through these painful experiences is to go through the wound. It's not to override it, right? And that's what psychedelics have helped me overcome these things, is like, I know when I need to just hold myself and cry. I don't fight it anymore. And I don't feel the compulsion to go, get high like I used to, because now I know, oh no, on the other side of this cry is relief, and it's like, I don't fear that anymore. And it's like, because I trust myself and I trust my body to go through the natural process of releasing what it needs, it's no longer holding on to. And like you said, now it's like, if I want to drink or I want to get, stoned, or I want to take psychedelics, like, it's a conscious experience, but I'm not doing it because I have to. Like, there's agency.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. This last episode that we just released was on mindfulness, and we had a guy on that I went to college with who's into it in meditation, and this was very directly something we discussed at length, was the idea of just being okay with feeling what you're feeling and feeling it. And I talked about a time that I had at a funeral where a good friend of mine committed suicide, and so it was a different kind of funeral. There's different levels of tragedy to these things sometimes, and that was a tough one. He was like, he was a young guy, and like that one was hard, and harder than normal. And I just had this really cathartic experience where I was crying, and I was just kind of it was kind of toward the end, and people were really starting to lose it, and everybody around me was kind of trying to hold it in, or they were like trying to keep their makeup from running down their face, or whatever. It was like there's some sense of trying to like bottle this, right? Like, don't just let it out. And I just remember having this moment where I'm like, no, I'm just letting it out. Like, I'm just gonna let this go. And it was, I don't know, it almost gave me like I would almost describe it as a high, or some sort of like a clarity on the other side of that, where it was like I sat with this and I got through it. Like I sat with the pain. I let the tears just roll, just like fall down my face and fall down my clothes without trying to fight it. And there was something really powerful about that. And to this day, when I go to a funeral, I always do that. I do the same thing. I try to be as open to the pain that I'm feeling as I possibly can. And I really took something from that experience. And I think that's similar to what you're describing. It sounds like, is just learning how to feel what you're feeling and not trying to mask it and hide it. And that's where the danger is, I think, with compulsive things. Like, it could be eating, it could be sex, it could be drinking, it could be drugs, whatever we're talking about here, all these like pleasure seeking things that we use to try to mask the pain, but it doesn't work. The pain is still there. And in fact, typically then you're making it worse. You're adding new layers of pain. And,
yeah.
And so, I think there's really something profound in just the idea of, and if psychedelics can help someone do that, that's great. Like, if it can help you to just be like, hey, it's okay to just sit with this thing, to just understand that these are feelings. They don't need to control your actions. They don't need to control your life. You can just feel something and unwind it and move on.
Yeah, it doesn't derail my life anymore. I'm like, oh, well, sounds like I just need to go take a bath and cry. And then I'm like, well, we're back. It's just like a little kid that like falls over and like cries for 10 minutes. Like, oh, I'm up. Like, and I just do it. I just don't even bat an eyelash at it. I'm just like, well, I got to move through it. And I don't know. It's very seldom now that I just have these emotional dysregulated meltdowns. Like, I'm just able to just like bounce back so much quicker because I just allow myself to feel, and that's like years of disassociating and not being present. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be in grad school, like living the life I do, having the relationships I have, like embracing sobriety the way I do. And I say sobriety in the sense of like, I'm not an addict anymore. Like, I consciously use substances. Like, the life I have today is beyond my wildest dreams. And quite honestly, is proof of a God, because there's just no other way that I would be here after everything I went through and all the ways I coped. And truly, it's just being able to just sit back and like, I'm here for the whole spectrum of the human experience, not just the bad, like not just the good. I get to go through the highs and the lows. And I just allow the bad days to be like, well, that was just the valley, but there's a high. And I just kind of allow myself to go through the waves and I don't judge it. And I don't know, maybe that's really like woo-woo of me, but like, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I guess I'm just neutral. I'm just like It is what it is. It's not personal. Everyone has bad days. God isn't doing it to me. It's just the way I respond to it. And I think our brains like to create these narratives. And it's like, once I got out of this victim mode, I'm like, I'm a fucking badass. My brother's like, you would survive the nuclear holocaust. I'm like, yeah, I would. Thank you. But I don't look at what I've been through as like this woe is me. I just look at it as like, I'm a resilient woman. Like, you cannot kill me. I'm a cockroach. And I just got to move on with my day, but it doesn't weigh me down. And I don't identify as this victim anymore. Now I just feel like that was my path. I moved through it. And if I can be a beacon of light and show people how to move through it too, then like, great. I'm cool with that being my purpose.
Yeah. So that's actually a really great message. I deeply resonate with that. I think that a lot of the time there's this, admittedly, like, it's perfectly fine. I don't want to invalidate anyone's feelings, but there is a sense of, a sort of identifying with victimhood and maybe keeping that resentment. And sometimes there's a place for it. I do think that there's an opportunity for growth and development after that. Like, life continues after you leave a high control group. Life continues after you leave a cult. So it's very endearing to hear that you're in a much better place, and awesome that you're going to school. So
yeah, and I just feel like, I don't know, we all have a sad story. What are you gonna do about it? It's like, I hate to say that, but it's just like, you have a choice. Do you want to make something out of it, or you just want to like feel sorry for yourself? And I'm not trying to put people down. I've been on that other end, but I'm just like, I'm not going to sit here and waste my one precious life feeling sorry for myself because bad things have happened to me. Bad things happen to good people all the time. I have a choice of what I'm going to do with it. And if I have to lick my wounds and pay for therapy, then I'll fucking do it. But I'm not going to let that rob me of the rest of my life. And so I think I just woke up one day. I was like, I have to get through this, and I will do whatever it takes. And if you have that tenacity, like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And I was like, I just made it a conscious choice that like, I'm going to get better, and nothing and no one is going to stop me. And I just went to freaking town. I meditated my ass off, and I just did, and I think it really is just one day at a time. Like, just for today, I'm going to just put one foot in front of the other, and it just gets easier. And then one day you wake up and you're like, holy crap, like, I actually created the life of my dreams. And if you had told me a couple years ago that I would be where I am, I wish I could hug that little Logan, who is ready to, I've had 1,000,001 different ways I could have ended it. And I just wish I could go back and hug her and say, like, you're going to have the life of your dreams, like, beyond your wildest conception. And if you just keep going. And if like, I can encourage anybody, like, just keep going. Like, you don't know what's possible, and you're worth sticking around. Like, if anybody is debating ending it, like, if it's any consolation, we don't know if what's on the other side is better than this. So you're better off taking agency and doing the best you can with here. Cause like, I can't guarantee what's on the other end if I ended it, but I do have a choice of how I make do with it here. And I'd rather give this my best earnest try and then go out the way I'm supposed to than like pull the plug. And I'm glad I chose that route.
Yeah, and in some sense, discussing these things publicly now and coming forward with your story, which requires a lot of bravery, and it's not easy. Maybe that is you giving little Logan a hug. Right?
Oh man, that's beautiful. Thank you.
It reminds me of something pretty profound. It was profound to me when I heard it the other day, which was that maybe a way to think about a meaning in life is to look at the world the way it is and see what problems exist in the world that you're in a unique position to solve because of your life experience, your, whatever things that you've been through. And I look around at a world right now and I see a lot of people in cults. I see a lot of people that are not able to break free of a lot of controlling thought patterns, and a lot of people with PTSD. And so for all of us, I think if having gone through that and being in the various stages we are in that process of overcoming that, if we can then, once we get on the other side of that, do something to help others to get through it too. I mean, what a better way to use your life could there be?
Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, I was literally just born to be creative. And I'm just very grateful that that's all my life is. You know, I look up my life every day and I'm like, wow, I just get to work for myself, and I create, I write, I shoot photography, I design websites. Like, I'm in school for tech. It's just like, I'm so grateful that I have found a way to alchemize the pain and turn it into something beautiful, and then I get to share that gift with other people, right? And it's just, I don't know, life is a gift. And if you're able to just find how to make meaning of what you've been through and turn over a new leaf, then it wasn't in vain. And I know that's so contrite and, you know, eye-rolling, but like, it is true. It's a corny platitude, but it's true. You know, it's just, you have to decide how you want to utilize it. And I've just found a way to just, like I said, alchemize it. And now it's gold, right? But I had to go through some shit to get to that gold, and I'm grateful. I don't think anything in life is anything worthwhile in life. You have to go through some shit to get there, and I'm glad that I went through the shit to get to where I am now.
There's a philosopher, Baruch de Spinoza, and he has a line at the end of his book, but it's like, how does it go? Now I can't get it for the quote. What is it? All things that are truly excellent are as difficult as they are beautiful.
Yeah, it really is the truth. I mean, I don't know. I don't want anything. I don't want instant gratification. I want to know I worked for it. It's so much more rewarding. And that includes recovering from a cult. There's no quick fix, but also, what's the point of being here on Earth? I'm not here for like some quick fix and die. Like, I'm here to learn these lessons. I'm here to go through these experiences. I don't know what else is the point. Maybe to eat ice cream and hang out with cats, you know, and that's pretty cool too. But I'm like, I do like
eating ice cream is definitely on my list.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like, I'm definitely here. I'm definitely here to eat all the ice cream flavors, but I am here to go through these lessons, and at the end of these painful experiences is a lesson if I choose to look at it that way. And so I don't know how else to, you know, make peace with what I've gone through, but it's made me who I am. And now I can be a beacon of light to people who go through other things, you know, like show you that there is hope to recover. Thank you all. This was incredible. I feel like a new person, and I really appreciate you being my Uber driver. And by the way, our poetry brothel was amazing.
Was it? It sounded. I wanted to come so bad. You have no idea. The Nuggets were in the playoffs that night. It was like
your brain.
I have to come. I'll come to another one though.
Yes, we'll have another one. I don't know what the theme will be. The first one was. The first theme was Gold Rush, and I looked like a pirate cowgirl. It was a very interesting outfit. I was like, this is not. I don't know.
Wait, did you end up getting a wig? She was doing.
I did not get a wig, but everyone knew who I was, and the elf ears.
Okay, the elf ears give it away. Okay, yeah.
The elf ears were popping. I had a very calm voice, and I just spoke like this all night. So I got way too into it, and I was very sad to take the elf ears off. I need to find more reason to wear elf ears.